All right, welcome back everybody for another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at something a little different. We got some really interesting source material about these two characters, Alex and Zoe, from an episode called Walls and Bridges. And the listener is really interested in seeing how vulnerability, emotional honesty, and trust kind of play out in their relationship. So I think it'll be a really interesting deep dive.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So before we jump into this, what really stood out to you about this episode?
Well,
what grabbed your attention?
You really hit it on the head when you mentioned those three themes. The vulnerability, honesty, and trust, because they're all so intertwined in this episode. And I think Walls and Bridges is all about how these two characters, who are both carrying baggage from their past, they have to learn to navigate these complexities and hopefully build a genuine connection.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, too, because we find out from the source material that Alex's past relationship ended really badly.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really interesting thing to explore. How do you see this experience affecting how he interacts with Zoe?
Well, if you look closely, you'll notice that there's some subtle cues there.
Okay.
You know, especially when Zoe's trying to get close to him, physically he'll distance himself.
Yeah.
And even if she asks him about his past, he kind of avoids eye contact with her. His body language becomes a little closed off, and his responses are short and clipped.
Okay.
I think these are all pretty classic signs of someone who's kind of guarding their heart.
Yeah.
You know, he's afraid of being hurt again.
Right.
So he's doing his best to keep Zoe at a distance.
Yeah.
Both physically and emotionally.
It's almost like he's built this fortress around himself, and he's just not willing to lower the drawbridge.
I think that's a great analogy.
For anyone, even Zoe.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, we have Zoe, who's also dealing with her own insecurities.
Right.
After a pretty rough breakup of her own. And I think her vulnerability is a little bit different from his.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not so much about guarding her heart as it is about, believing that she's worthy of love. So how do you think her insecurities kind of manifest themselves?
Well, she does this thing where she'll constantly apologize and downplay her own needs.
Oh, wow.
Almost like she's seeking validation from Alex.
Okay.
And really afraid of being too much. I remember in one scene she even says something like, I wouldn't want to burden you with my problems.
Oh.
And I think that really speaks volumes about her self-worth and the wall that she's built around herself.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to see how they're both being held back by these past experiences. But the episode is called Walls and Bridges, so how do their shared experiences kind of create a bridge between them?
Well, the bridge starts to form when they start to take down those walls.
Okay.
Brick by brick. I noticed the writers used a really interesting technique in this episode where they kind of did some parallel storytelling, and they would intercut scenes from their past relationships with their present interactions. And I think that really highlights how their past experiences are shaping their current behavior. But it also allows us to empathize with both of the characters.
Yeah, it's not just telling their stories. It's showing us how these stories are still really impacting them. Today, and I'm really interested in this bridges part of the title. What do you think the creators are trying to say with that metaphor?
Well, I think the title is a great metaphor for their entire emotional journeys. You know, the walls are clearly their defenses, right?
Okay.
It's the barrier they've built to protect themselves from being hurt.
Right.
But the bridges are what they create when they choose to be vulnerable and open up to each other.
So when they share their vulnerabilities, they're kind of building this bridge of understanding and empathy.
Exactly. And there's this one scene that really captures the shift perfectly. Do you remember when Alex finally opens up to Zoe about his ex?
Oh, yeah.
He confesses his fear of being hurt again, and his voice even cracks with emotion. It's such a raw and vulnerable moment for him.
Yeah, that scene gave me chills. It was so powerful to watch those walls come down. And what was even more amazing was how Zoe responds to that.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't shy away from his vulnerability. She leans right into it.
Yeah.
And she shares her own insecurities, her own fear of messing things up.
Right. In that moment, their honesty creates a powerful connection. They're no longer these two guarded individuals haunted by their past. They're two souls just connecting on this deeply human level.
Yeah, it's like their shared vulnerability becomes this foundation for a stronger and more authentic connection.
That's a great way to put it. And it also highlights how good the writers are. You know, they don't just tell us that vulnerability is important, they show us the power of it. through their dialogue, their emotions, and these carefully crafted interactions.
That's such a good point. It's not just about saying the words, it's about how they're delivered, the emotions behind them.
Exactly. Walls and Bridges is truly a testament to the power of storytelling and its ability to just illuminate these complexities in human connection.
I think it really makes you think about your own walls and bridges in your life.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up here, what's the biggest takeaway that you hope listeners will get from Alex and Zoe's experience?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that even though vulnerability can be terrifying, it's the key to unlocking genuine connection. Alex and Zoe's journey shows us that true intimacy requires us to have the courage to be seen, flaws and all, and to trust that the right person will embrace us for who we are.
That's a powerful reminder. So as you reflect on their story, think about the walls and bridges in your own life. And what steps can you take to dismantle those walls and foster deeper connections with the people around you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. So come share them with us on social media. Until next time, keep diving deep.